Have you ever just picked up a game and thought that, man, I can just play this forever? No matter how many years go by, no matter how many other games come out, you just keep going back to that game. And it almost feels that you're stuck in that time period. Well, that's what this video is all about, and going over some of my favorite timeless Nintendo games of all time. And these are games that have appeared on Nintendo systems. They might be on other ones, but I experienced them first on a Nintendo platform. Now, I just want to let you guys know this list was extremely hard to make, and I might have made some mistakes here and there. I mean, I don't know. But that's why I want you guys to list off your top timeless games. There will be disagreements. People will say one thing or another, but at the end of the day, I think it's just about the games, and that's the most important thing. We can just celebrate some of the greatest games of all time together. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into my top 10 timeless Nintendo games. Number 10, Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube. I remember when Resident Evil 4 first came out, and I was thinking, okay, I like Resident Evil, but what makes this one special? This was before YouTube, this was before all of that. And when I played it, I thought to myself, this is going to be one of the most important, but also best games that has ever came out. And I was proven right with that. Resident Evil 4, even with some of the dated things in the game, like not being able to move and shoot, you can still set up the plot points, you still have the different guns, the leveling. There are so many aspects of Resident Evil 4 that stay completely true to today's time. There are mechanics in there that are used over and over again, and other modern games have built their foundation off of what Resident Evil 4 does with the behind-the-back third-person shooter. Without Resident Evil 4, I think a lot of things in the industry would have been different. But like I said, I can go back no matter what generation, no matter what era, no matter what time it is. I can go back, pop in Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, on the Wii, on the 360, on the Switch, on the PlayStation. It doesn't matter when, and still have a blast doing it. Because of that, Resident Evil 4 is number 10 on my list. Number 9, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now this is a little bit of a newer title, but what makes this one timeless over the original game is the fact that they added so many things in terms of newer mechanics and also quality of life features that someone can pick this game up 10 years from now and say, you know what, that was a really great experience. The battle system in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is very unique. There's not many other games like it, so even as other RPGs come out, this one can still separate itself over the years. Heck, remember, originally this came out back in 2010 in Japan, and now we're playing the game in 2020, 2021, and it's still just as good, if not better, than what we remembered it with all of the modern additions. So I can easily see myself going back to this game multiple times, as I have over the years with the original release on the Wii, then playing it again on the new Nintendo 3DS, then playing it again on the Wii U. Shulk and his friends deliver stunning performances when it comes to the voice acting. The gameplay is varied and unique. There are so many different angles that you can tackle monsters and bosses. There's so much content where you can go back and figure out things that you didn't do before. And with all of that, it kind of just transformed what I thought of a modern action RPG. So that's the reason why it's number 9 on my list. Number 8, Pokemon Fire Red / Leaf Green Game Boy Advance. So let's talk about this, because I think the original Pokemon Red and Blue are very good. They are obviously monumental. They are huge games. But I think that Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, even still to this day, you can go back and look at the sprite work. You can go back and even look at the story and what they did there and what they added into the game and say, this is a solid game. This plays great, especially on a nice GBA SP. So that's why I have this game at number 8. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, even still to this point, it's better than other monster collecting type of games. We haven't seen any third-party developer kind of come in and top Pokemon when it comes to all aspects. Now, there's some great clones out there. There are some other games that definitely do a great job, but with the amount of Pokemon, the kind of script and story setups, with the complexity and the depth, the hidden depth that Pokemon games have, you can still go back pretty much in any era and play a Pokemon Fire Red game and have a ton of fun. You can freestyle it and make your own Nuzlocke, and that can be a whole game in itself, or you can just play straight through and try to battle your way to the top. I mean, it's one of those things where, like I said, this concept of this Pokemon battling and leveling up and the elements, fire and water, weaknesses, resistances, it just always suits every era. And to me, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green was that game that kind of personified exactly what Pokemon was about and the potential that it had. So with that, that's why it's number 8 on my list. Number 7, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze from the Wii U. So this one might be a little bit interesting because when you think of 2D platformers, you often think of Mario and other games, and we might have some of that later. But Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze to me is a game that perfected the old school 2D platform in a modern sense. And no matter when you pick that game up, whether you played it back in 2014 on the Wii U or you're playing the game on the Switch, it's just better every time. The more you play, the more you kind of get into the difficulty of the game and the depth of the different characters, you start realizing like, wow, they did a phenomenal job with the level design. And it doesn't matter when you play this game, you can play it 15, 20 years from now, that level design will hold up. Those graphics will hold up. That style and the music will all hold up because they're so expertly done and they transcend time from a 90s feel all the way up to a 20XX or whatever in terms of what you would expect like an African safari or an area like that, a tropical area to look like, right? So that's the reason why this game just kind of sticks out to me, and that's why I think it deserves this number 7 spot on the list. Number 6, Fire Emblem Awakening from the Nintendo 3DS. Now, this game came out back in 2013, and yes, if you played it not at this point, it would look a little rough on the eyes. But at the same time, the story, the acting, the voice acting, the cutscenes, there are so many other memorable things that put this story and put this game together that make it special. The fact that it saved the Fire Emblem franchise, the fact that it added so many new elements to an old genre, a genre that people thought peaked years prior with some of the other games, but they continue to bring it when it comes to intelligent systems. They kind of put their all into this, and you can still pick up Fire Emblem Awakening today and have so much fun with the mechanics and tag teaming up to kind of do the dual attacks and moving across the map. And the music just fits. It just fits what you would expect. And as you play, you'll continuously kind of bop to the music and kind of go through. And in my opinion, I don't feel that there's any time that I couldn't pick up Fire Emblem Awakening and be happy and smile while playing through the game, because the mechanics and the gameplay is just that type. The controls, very responsive. Everything is smooth when it comes to the gameplay. So Fire Emblem Awakening from the Nintendo 3DS makes it to number 6 on the list. Number 5, Super Metroid from the Super Nintendo. So Super Metroid is a game that I absolutely adore, and I think basically kind of started this whole Super Metroidvania style of game. We've had multiple other games, and yes, the original Metroid did have the same type of flow, but Super Metroid kind of put that stamp on what you could do with that style. Speed running became a thing with that because they timed you and said, hey, this is your time. They said you can go back to one area or another, but it was slick 2D type of visuals, and the mechanics in the game just feel great to play when you're running really fast and you break through something, or the high jump boots, or flipping off the walls. These are all things that are just timeless. These are all things in terms of game mechanics that people just love to go through, no matter how many different games have them. Super Metroid, you can just kind of go back to it, almost like comfort food, and you can say, wow, they really did an amazing job with this, and it plays still so great to this day with the art and the pixels and everything with the plot of the game. There's not too much story. It's all about the gameplay. It gets you right in there, but it tells just enough to keep you interested and kind of get you hooked on the game. So Super Metroid is one of those games that I think I can go back to over and over again. The original came out in '94, played it again whenever it was on like some of like the GBA stuff or on the Nintendo 3DS, the virtual console on there, the Wii virtual console, the Wii U, the Nintendo Switch Online. You can play at any point and you can just have a blast. So for that, Super Metroid makes it to number 5 on my list. Number 4, Super Mario Galaxy 2 from the Nintendo Wii. This game came out back in 2010 and it was absolutely stunning. I really can't think of too many bad things to say about this game. There are so many aspects to where Nintendo kind of just nailed it 100% with the level design, with the different upgrades and power-ups, with the graphics in the game. No matter when you play this, you can play it back in 2010, you can play it in 2021, you can play it in 2024. It is going to be a magical experience that just flows with the smooth controls, with the great looking aesthetics. Super Mario Galaxy 2 just does so many things right and very, very few things wrong. And for the most part, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I thought that it was one of the best platformers, 3D platformers, actually the best 3D platformer that I've ever played, and I still feel this way 10 plus years later. I've played so many other 3D platformers, but Super Mario Galaxy 2 still holds the top, and that's what makes it a timeless game in at number 4. Number 3, the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. So from the N64 back in 1999 all the way to the Nintendo Switch, the Super Smash Bros. Franchise is a franchise that is timeless. It goes through, it flows, and it just sits right. You can pick up any of the games, all of them, 60 frames per second. And they all have their little quirks here and there, but over the years the Super Smash Bros. Franchise has standed the test of time as people still play the N64 version of Super Smash Bros. Which it was a miracle that that game even ran at 60 frames per second on the N64 in the first place, but they got it done. Sakurai got it done. And then if you go all the way up to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the roster is just so vast and is just so brimming with personality and content. It's going to be hard to sit here and say that even 10 years from now or 20 years from now that another game could have as an impressive roster as Super Smash Bros. Because no game in the past 20 years or so when it comes to major games have came close to what Super Smash Bros. Has done, and the controls are just on point. Every game has its little quirks and little things that it does amazing and not, and it's up to you to figure out which one you like the most, but it doesn't matter which one it is, because over the past 20 years plus that this game has been out, people have played their version of the game. So that's why I couldn't just pick one of the Smash Bros. Games. It's just the Smash Bros. Franchise in general. So for that reason, it makes it to number 3 on the list. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So this game was a dual launch in 2017 on the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, and I mainly played the Switch version of the game. But despite some of the little issues the game did have, this game will stand the test of time. This game will be played for decades. People will go back to this game and say, this was the turning point for something for Nintendo, depending on where this goes with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. But I still feel Breath of the Wild is the type of game that defines a generation, that you can just sit there and say, oh my gosh, like what was the game that just really stood out to you the most? And I think many people, probably millions, would say, yeah, back then, it was definitely The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This will be the Super Mario Bros. For some people, right? Some of the newer gen, that first game that got them hooked on it, and they can just go back and play it. And for me, as someone who's been gaming for decades now, I can sit back and say Breath of the Wild is one of the most magical experiences that I had, and if I can just erase my memory and do it all over again, I would, and it would be just as good and just as awesome as I've ever had it. And that to me makes a game timeless, and that's exactly the reason why Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with all of the mechanics, everything that they did in the game when it comes to the story, when it comes to the gameplay. I mean, it's not for everybody with all the mechanics and all the stuff, but it's so good to where you're just going to keep playing and figure out, okay, how is my style and what I'm going to do, like with the Sheikah Slate and with all of the shrines and just with so many aspects of the game and with the maneuverability and the combat options. It was just a extreme innovation and play on the original Legend of Zelda. So I have to give this game number 2 on the list. And at number 1, Chrono Trigger from the Super Nintendo in 1995. So this game still, I think out of all the games that I've talked about, obviously people have their opinions on what is a timeless game or not. But to me, Chrono Trigger, pardon the pun, is the most timeless game. This game has stood the test of time. And it's interesting because the game is all about time and the passing of time, of thousands of years and so many different things. But I think that's what aids this game. The fact that they go through different time periods. And I remember playing this game, 25 years ago, and still at this point, it's exactly what I would think about certain time periods. It's exactly what I would think about that and what it could be in a dystopian future or in a prehistoric time or in the medieval times. I mean, it still sets it up just right. And if you look at the combat and the battle system, it's still very relevant. They have an ATB time battle system, active time battle, and then they also have a traditional turn-based. So it's a switch type of RPG, which a lot of games still don't have that at this point. And also you can look at the endings, multiple different endings based on what you do, more than a lot of games that come out today. And if you look at the character development and even the sprite work and the graphics, it's all still really good. Not, of course, the huge Final Fantasy and stuff that we get today, but you can't look at that game and say, wow, for the tech and for what it was built on, it's still not a beautiful game with all the different dual techs and the triple techs and the magic. I mean, I can only imagine the type of hell that the developers went through to make this type of game back in 1992, 93, 94, when they were developing it before it launched. It must have been absolutely crazy. And can we talk about the music? The music is probably still to this day my favorite soundtrack out of any game. The Chrono Trigger soundtrack is legendary. Nobuo Uematsu was on point when he made this. Of course, Akira Toriyama with the drawings and the legendary Hironobu Sakaguchi with the gameplay. It just all wraps up and makes sense. And that's exactly the reason why Chrono Trigger makes it to number 1 on my list. Now, those are my top 10 timeless Nintendo games. Please let me know what you guys think about it. And also, please let me know what are your top 10 timeless games. It can be from any system, any era, whatever you want to talk about. I'd be more than happy to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.